Hello students, welcome back again to another video tutorial review paper and lesson from the AP3X Institute of Mathematics Education, where of course on my channel I particularly focus on preparing crash course students over the course of 8 months to attempt the inaugural, well not inaugural, but the well-renowned CXC exam that is held twice per year, that is of course in January and also in May. Now this particular paper is a paper that was designed to test the students who have been a part of my tutoring sessions over the past 3 months, which was from September the 11th all the way through to December the 18th. And of course we covered a wide range of topics such as fractions, decimals and approximation, worded problems that involves basic rate, basic wage, commission, sales tax, discount, hire purchase, all the worded problems that you could particularly find on a Csec paper. We also dibble and dabbled a little bit into the introduction of algebra, as well as we touched topics such as measurement, and of course we also touched a bit of the topic of coordinate geometry. Now at the time of making this video, which I have decided that I'm going to be releasing on January the 7th, I'm actually making this video on the day of Christmas. I want to also take the opportunity here to wish all my students now and in the future a happy holidays, a Merry Christmas, a Happy New Year to everyone, and I hope that of course this video will help you to make you feel a little bit better about your performance. Now as I said, at the time of making this video I have not yet marked the papers, and let me just show you a quick image here of how many papers I have to mark. It's gone over 100, so I'm not gonna have the typical teacher's holiday, but it's fun for me here to be making this video for you and to just give you that motivation that you need to continue to work hard and improve your mathematical skills. All right, so we're going to be diving into the video. Of course, here are some behind the scenes clips of my students that were engaging in the exam. You know, it was a well organized exam. I believe the paper was a very well compressed paper. It touched almost every area of, obviously in an end of year exam you're not able to really test every single area, but I did spend about an hour constructing these questions. They were sprung off questions from exam papers from 2003, 2004, because I really do tend to put my students under the microscope when it comes to really learning how to think through the questions. So if you guys got back your results and you're now seeing that you did well or you didn't do well, then of course hopefully this video will be of some assistance in giving you all the clarity that you need. So of course, if this is the first time here on the channel, do not forget to hit that subscribe button below, and of course leave a like. You know, ask your questions in the comment section, make your suggestions, share your different routes. You know, of course, whenever I'm doing a review paper, I don't just tend to show you one route to getting the answer to the questions. I will show you multiple routes throughout this particular paper here. So I may upload this video in 3 parts, or maybe 2 parts, or maybe I just give you the whole entire video as a post. But however you get it, guys, I do hope that this video will be of some value to you. All right, you can follow me on all my social platforms such as TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, and of course right here on YouTube, where I post weekly tutorials to prepare students for the Csec exams year after year. All right, so without further ado, let's jump right into getting into the exam paper. Let's first read the instructions on the paper. And the institution that I physically work with is in fact Manchester Institute of Learning, where we provide lessons, tutorials to students anywhere, online and face-to-face. That's where that's where I actually work. But I do have my own personal online platform, as you're seeing here. So this particular paper didn't have much instructions. Of course, it just says read all instructions carefully and answer the questions. To gain the full marks, you have to show working to acquire all full marks here. All right, and this paper consists of 2 sections. Section 1 and section 2. Section 1, all the questions are compulsory, and when I get to section 2, I will also read that instruction for you. So without further ado, let's dive right into the paper. And like I said, guys, happy holidays to all of you guys. For those of you who did well, thumbs up to you, and for those of you who didn't do so well, of course, take the necessary clarity that you need and just continue to improve. All right, so let's dive on right in here. So the first question on the paper asks us here to evaluate and express as a single fraction in its lowest terms. And we all know how exams are with students. They will, of course, tend to know what the exact part of the questions, how to work out the questions, and for some reason they tend to always made that little mistake here. But let's see if we can get into this here. So for this question, 2 1/4 multiplied by 4 over 5, all divided by 3 over 5 minus a half. And like we have explained in my 2 previous review paper, the best way to approach a fraction question is to put the question in parts. So I'm going to call the numerator of this composite fraction A and the denominator of this composite fraction B. Now in the A section of this paper here, we are going to then go ahead and say 4 multiplied by 2 is 8, and 8 plus 1 gives us 9. Pardon me here, guys, 1 second. So we're going to have 9 over 4, and then we're going to multiply that then by 4/5. Okay, so let's just work out that part. So if we end up with 9 over 4 multiplied by 4 over 5, we can therefore just cancel the 2 4s here. That's numerator with denominator, and we're going to end up with a simplified answer of 9 over 5. And then we can just put that in a little box here. And then we're going to go to the B section of the problem, and there is no conversion to do. So it's just a simple case of going ahead to find the LCM here, which is 5 times 2 is 10. And so 5 into 10 goes 2 times. So let's just put that 2 in the numerator here. That's times 2. And then we're going to say 2 into 10 goes 5 times. Put the times 5 in the numerator here. Now 3 times 2 is 6, and 5 multiplied by 1 is 5. So we're going to end up here with a simplified answer in the B section of this problem to be 1 over 10. I'm going to then therefore go ahead and put that into also a little box here, well, a little circle, pardon me, a little box here. All right, now we have 2 answers. We have a simplified answer at the top, which needs to be divided by the simplified answer at the bottom. So we end up with 9 over 5. So that's 9 over 5. And we're going to divide that then by 1 over 10. Now 9 over 5 will remain. We're going to be using the KCF method, so that is keep the first fraction, change the sign of the middle sign, change the sign of the division to multiplication, and we're going to flip the last fraction, so that becomes 10 over 1. So that's very easy then, that we can use the 5 to cancel the 10. So 5 into 10 goes 2 times, 5 into 12 goes 1 times. So we end up with a final result here of 9 times 2 is exactly 18 here. All right, so that is our final answer here. 18 is the answer to question 1, and that gave you a total marks of 3. All right, so thumbs up to the students who actually got that answer. In fact, as you're watching this video, I do encourage you to have your exam paper out in front of you and just make the necessary notations on your exam paper. Of course, you would have seen some notes and some encouraging statements at the top of your paper. So if you would like, it would be best for you to have separate blank papers or folder leaves as you're taking these corrections, and you're going to put them all together in a folder. Right, this is the approach that you have to take in order to become a distinction student here. All right, so let's go into question number 2. We are asked to evaluate the following and express your answer correct to 3 significant figures. You're going to also express your answer to 1 decimal place, and as well as going to be putting your answer into scientific notation. And the question that we are required to evaluate here is the cube root of 18.75 minus 2.11 raised to the power of 3/4. Now I do have a physical calculator here with me, but my particular calculator here is an advanced version, and for some reason I can't seem to find the cube root on the actual calculator here. So I'm going to be using the calculator on my tablet here. So let's see if we can grab access to that calculator. Give me a second here, guys. Let's see if we can find it. There it is. All right, so I'm going to be pulling up the cube root of 18.75. So here I'm going to press cube root of 18.75, and you will find here that your answer is 2.65, or we can just simply say we can say 2.656 or 2.657, or if it's two decimal places, it's going to be 2.67. Now, since as we are not asked to round off so early, I encourage my students to always write your answer to three significant figure or 3 decimal places. All right, one of the two will work. So I'm going to be working with 2.657 here. So let's just write that down. That's going to be 2.657, and we're going to be minusing. Then I can now go back onto my physical calculator here. So that's 2.11. I'm going to raise that to the power of 3 divided by 4. All right, or 0.75. You will find here that your answer becomes 1.75. Let's round that out. 1.751. Okay, 1.751. All right, and if we go ahead then and type those two figures into our calculator, that's 2.657 minus 1.75. You will find here that you get an answer of 0.907. Now it did say that we are to round off the answer that we got to 3 significant figures. So let's do that first. So what would be this answer to 3 significant figures? Well, it is obviously already written to 3 significant figures. So to 3 SF, let's just write that down here. So to 3 SF, our answer is 0.907. All right, it did also ask us to round it off to 1 dp. Now, of course, to 1 dp, we're gonna have to draw a vertical line behind the digit, or behind the first digit that comes after the point. So if we draw a line here and we check the digit that comes after that vertical line, then we will find that the number is actually less than 5. So we're going to just we're just going to ignore the 0 and the 7, and so our final answer here will become 0.9 here. All right. It did also ask us to write the answer also in scientific notation, and for physics students, you will be familiar with the term scientific notation, but for math students, we are more accustomed to the terminology of standard form. All right, and we interchange the words, they're both the same. Now, with standard form, then let's just write this number down again here. Our answer that we got was 0.907. If we want to get this number written to in standard form, then we need to move our decimal point behind the first digit that is not a 0, or behind the first digit that is greater than 0. So in this case here, 0.907, if I move my point here and put it right between the 9 and the 0, then my new number is going to become 9.07. Standard form is a base 10 number, so we're going to be multiplying this by 10, and we're going to be raising it to a specific power, and the power to which we raise it to is going to depend on the direction that we move and how many places we moved. So basically on screen here you can see that I only move my decimal point one place to the right. So when I move to the right, my power is negative, and I only move one place, so I'm going to be raising it to the power of -1. So therefore our final result written in standard form here is 9.07 times 10 raised to the -1. All right, so that concludes that particular question there, and let us check to see how much marks we got. We actually got 5 marks for that, so that's good. So we are up to 8 marks already. Let us continue. We're going to be meeting our first worded question here. Now, a loan of $10,670 was borrowed from a bank that charges simple interest of X%. At the end of 21 months, the interest charged amounted to $2,614.15. Our task is to calculate the value of X for 2 marks, and let's do that first. All right, so whenever you get worded questions like these, the first thing you guys want to do is to try to identify the values of the variables that are related to the formula for this question. And this question, just by reading it, is a simple interest question. It was obviously stated here in the question, simple interest. So that would therefore then bring up a very familiar fundamental formula of how to calculate simple interest, and that would have obviously been the formula SI is equal to principal multiplied by time multiplied by rate divided by 100. And there we have it here on screen. Simple interest is equal to principal, that is P, multiplied by time, which is T, multiplied by R, which is rate, divided by 100. Now, one of the things that you guys would want to do now and in the future when you get questions like these is to identify the values of the variables that are in the question here. And it was obvious that a loan, which is the principal, in this case a principal can be the amount that you invest, or it can be the amount that is borrowed. So in this case, in this question here, a loan of $10,670 was borrowed. So already you can see I have written down here that P is equal to $10,670. We were told that the loan was borrowed at an X% rate, which means that we don't know what the rate of interest is. So in this case, the letter R is the unknown variable. Time is equal to 21 months. Now, interest is given on an annual basis. Now, I placed this question here specifically to test to see if my students remembered that time must be always calculated in years. So you can see here at the top right hand corner of the screen, I have 21 divided by 12, and so I divided it by 12 in order to convert the time to years. Now in blue I have simple interest is equal to principal times time times rate divided by 100. But if you also look to the right, I have the transposed formula for rate, which is SI times 100 divided by P times T. Now, I did recognize throughout the year that there are some students that I may be teaching that have very good grasp of algebra. So some students would have rearranged the formula, while some students would have used what I've been calling over the past 3 months the golden rule. And this golden rule here is to write down the original formula that is associated with the question. So here I am using the one in blue. So here I'm going to have simple interest, okay, is equal to P is $10,670. I'm going to then multiply this by the time, which is 21 over 12. I could go ahead and say 21 divided by 12 immediately and write 1.75. Okay, so let's just write 1.75. Okay, give me a second here, guys. So let's see here, we could go ahead then and write 21 divided by 12 is in fact 1.75. So that's 1.75. And then we're going to go ahead and multiply that by, say here, the rate, which is in this case X%. So it is unknown. All right, and then we're going to divide all of this here by 100. Now if we go ahead and go on our calculator here, I did forget one important factor. At the bottom here in red, notice that I've written here that SI is equal to $2,614.50. So I could go ahead and remove SI from here, and I'm going to put $2,614.15. All right, and then I'm going to make that equal, say here, to that calculation here on the right. Okay, so let's do that here. All right, so that's equal here. All right, so on the right, then I can go ahead and say $10,670 multiplied by 1.75, and so I'll end up, say here, with so let's go ahead, $2,614, and it's a little sticky here, guys, hold on. Okay, that's good. 15 cents equal. When I multiply 10,670 multiplied by 1.75, I will end up with 18,672.75. Now, since I'm already dividing by 100, so let's go ahead and just divide that number by 100. So we're going to end up with $186.725. All right, I'm not rounding off anything, so that's going to be $186.725, and that's going to be multiplied by X%. Now, since that I need to isolate the X% and it is connected to that constant by a multiplication, then the opposite of multiply is to divide. So we're going to end up with $2,614.15 divided by $186. Okay, $186 and 0.725 So grab our calculator here, $2,614.15 divided by 180.725. We end up with here with 14.4%. So if you guys want to use 14%, you could. Looking at this number, I'm just going to be just using 14.5%. All right, I'm going to be rounding it off to one decimal place. If you want to round it off to a whole number, then you would end up with 14%. But I'm just going to be, I'm going to try to be as specific as possible here. And I'm going to be working, pardon me, with 14.5%. Now, usually whenever we are marking, whenever I'm marking my papers, I mark for answers within a range. So I don't mark for anything specific. So if you have an answer that is not exactly like what here is on screen, you most likely will get some marks, or you'll get the full marks, depending on how you calculate the question here. All right, so let's put a little box around this here, that R is equal to 14.5%. All right. So that takes care of that question. That was for 2 marks. You could, like I said earlier, you could actually go ahead and use the rate formula as well. So you could go ahead here and put 2,000. Let's go here. Let's zoom it up a little bit. So we could have 2,614.15 multiplied by 100 and divided by the principal, which is $10,670 multiplied by the time, which is 1.75. And if you process that calculation there, you will also find that you get an answer that is approximately close to 14.5%. So let's make a note of that, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. That rate is equal to 14%. Okay. All right, so let's get back to the front of the paper here and let's see what else that they have asked us for. It says at the end of the loan period, a payment of $6,210 was made. Your task is to calculate the outstanding balance at the start of the new period. So this period actually ran for 21 months, which is not usual, because usually it runs for like a year or like a year and a half or 2 years or 3 years. I wanted to make the question just a hair tricky. So that means for this particular transaction here, the new loan period started at the end of 21 months. Now, to calculate the outstanding balance, remember that $10,670 was borrowed. So that's $10,670 was borrowed. And so therefore, if you make a payment of $6,210, we're going to be subtracting what you paid from what you borrowed. So that's 10,670 minus 6,210 will end up with $4,460. So this then becomes your outstanding balance. Let's just call it OB for short, your outstanding balance. So that takes care of that little question there, that we're asked to calculate the outstanding balance. Now, it says calculate the interest charged on the outstanding balance for another 3 months. So pretty much I'm trying to square off the year. I'm going to be doing, well, this particular question is designed that the interest will be charged on the remaining 3 months. All right. So that means the principal, which in this case is going to be the amount that is still outstanding. So we're going to go back to using our formula for simple interest. All right, so let's do here. We have SI is equal to principal times time times rate over 100. And so in this case, the simple interest is going to be equal to the principal. In this case will not be the initial amount that was borrowed, because of course the amount that is still outstanding is $4,460. And we're going to be multiplying it by the time. The remaining time is for the next 3 months. So again, we're going to be dividing 3 by 12 to convert it to years. So that's going to be 0.25. And we're going to be multiplying it by the rate, which we had calculated in part 1 to be 14.5. So the questions are in fact connected to some extent. All right, and we're going to be dividing that by 100. So if we go on our calculator and process all of that, that is 4,460 multiplied by 0.2. Okay, let's delete that. Okay, hold on. Okay, so 4,460 multiplied by 0.25 or 0.25 multiplied by 14.5, and then we're going to be dividing that by 100. We will find that the interest charged on to complete the 2-year period here is in fact 2000, sorry, pardon me, not 2000, a bit lost guys in my calculation here, $161 and 68 cents. So let's just round that off here. So that's $161 and 68 cents interest that is charged on the outstanding balance. All right, so that was a little bit of a tricky question, I supposed. All right, like I said at the beginning of the video, these questions were designed to test the critical thinking of the students. The worded questions you have to be able to read and understand, because this is what Csec is doing. Csec is writing questions that are testing your reasoning ability. All right, so that takes care of question 1, which was valued at a total of 15 points. Let's move then to question 2. Now we are asked to express as a single fraction 2x minus 3 over 4 subtract x minus 1 over 5 for 3 marks. Let's jump right into that here. Alright, so there we have it. We have 2x minus 3 over 4 minus x minus 1 over 5. So we're going to go ahead then and find our LCM. Alright, because we know that with fractions, once you are adding and or you are subtracting, you need to find the LCM. So in this case here, our LCM is the product of the denominators. So that's going to be 4 times 5, which is 20. And so 4 into 20, let's do here. So 4 into 20 goes 5 times. And that's going to be 5 multiplied by whatever is at the top. So in this case, it is going to be 5 multiplied by 2x minus 3. All right, then we're going to have 5 into 20 goes 4 times. And then the answer will be multiplying the expression that is at the top here. In this case, it is x minus 1. Now, using our distributive skills that we've garnered over the past 3 months, we're going to be using the 5 to distribute what is on the inside here. So we're going to be using the 5 to multiply the 2x and the 5 to multiply the minus 3, the minus 4 to multiply the x, and the minus 4 to multiply the minus 1. So in this case here, 5 times 2x, that's going to give us 10x. All right. And then 5 times 3, that's going to give us 15. We're going to have minus 4 times x, that's minus 4x. And negative 4 multiplied by negative 1 is positive 4. And so we're going to go ahead and divide then that by 20. All right, now to simplify this, if you guys would like, you can go ahead and group like terms, but we're at a stage here where we should be capable of grouping like terms mentally. So 10x minus 4x, that's going to give us 6x. All right, and then we're going to have negative 15 plus 4. A lot of students have gotten caught when it comes to this question here. I've seen where it becomes repetitive, where students add 15 to 4 and end up with 19 and put the negative there. Remember that negative 15 coming from our operations with integers video, negative 15 is an amount that is owed and positive 4 is an amount that you have. So negative 15 plus 4, that's going to give us negative 11, and we're going to divide that by 20, and that becomes our final result here. 6x minus 11 all divided by 20. All right, so far guys, I hope that you are getting some value, and if you are, of course, you can only help the channel whenever you click the like and engage with me in the comment section. Let me know what were your mistakes, what errors were you making, and if this is something consistent, we need to definitely work on getting those fixed there. All right, now we're going to be meeting our second worded question, which is related to direct proportion, I believe it is. Let's have a look at the question. It says here that in St. Vincent, 3 liters of gasoline costs $10.40. Now, if the driver needs to travel a distance that requires 7 liters, how much would it cost? So right away, we have a relationship already created where we know the actual cost of 3 liters. So 3 liters will cost us $10.40. This driver needs to travel a distance. Well, if the driver needs to travel a distance that requires 7 liters, how much would it cost him? All right, how much would it cost him? So in this case, then let's go ahead and form our immediate relationship. Okay, so now we end up with here with 3 liters is going to cost us $10.40. So therefore, it's easier for us to find out what is the cost of 1 liter. And that is what we call the single proportion. So 1 liter is going to cost us $10.40 divided by 3. So if we jump onto our calculator here, 10.40 divided by 3, that's going to give us $3.47. Some students may write $3.46. That is also fine as well. I'm going to just round off the figure here, which makes it easier later on. So $3.47. Now, this driver needs to travel a certain distance that will require 7 liters. So therefore, 7 liters will cost us 7 multiplied by the cost of 1 liter, which is $3.47. And so if we go on our calculator here and say 7 multiplied by 3.47, we will end up with an answer here of $24.29 here. And that is what it's going to cost you, well, cost the driver, if he had to travel a certain distance which requires 7 liters. Now let's go back to see if there were anything additional. It did say that if the driver has a total of 58.25, how much liters of gasoline can be bought, and would it be enough? I mean, it's kind of a rhetorical question. I think that when I wrote this question, my intent was not conveyed in the question, but it's obviously going to be enough, because here the driver has a little bit more than, well, not a little bit, more than twice the amount that it needs to travel 7 liters. But we want to find out, what we want to find out here is how much liters of gasoline can be bought with that 58.25. So since this is it's a very straightforward question that you may think requires a lot of working out, actually it does not, because we already know what is the cost of 1 liter. So all we have to do here is to just take the $58. I believe it was $58.25. Let's double check. Is it $58.25? Yes, it is $58.25. So all we have to do is just take the $58.25 and divide it by the cost of 1 liter, and that's $3.47. And if we are successful in doing that, then we should get an answer here. Let's see, 58.25 divided by 3.47. It will give us an approximate 16.78. So let's just round it off, 16.8, or it's going to give us very close to 17 liters, but to be very specific, we're just going to write 16.78. So 16.8 liters. That's the amount of petrol that particular amount of money can buy. And like I said, it's a rhetorical question to say, would it be enough? Well, like I said, what I wanted to convey in this question was not structured properly. I wanted to find out, would it be enough to travel a specific distance? I'd forgot to write that on the paper, but nevertheless, that's the idea. That is the process of the calculation there. Okay, so hopefully you guys understand that question. Then let's move to part C here. It did say given that, and let's just zoom up this a little bit here. I'm very annoyed by the fact that I actually used that symbol, because quite a few students, I believe, would have meant they were asking questions about whether or not it was mon ID, or actually it's not mon ID, it's actually an operation symbol. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with topics where they say something like M operation N, you know, that asterisk symbol that they always use on CXC. If you guys are familiar with that, of course, that's what we were referring to here. But for those who actually asked me in the exam, I was able to let them know that it's not mon ID, it's actually M operation D is. So there was some typing error here. But let's jump right into it. I would have released a class where I was explaining this concept. This is the second version of substitution. So here it says that M operation N is, it's supposed to be is, denoted by the formula the square root of 3M plus N. And then we are asked to calculate the value of 2 operation 10. Then we are also asked to work out 7 operation in bracket 2 operation 10, and we were also asked to calculate in bracket 2 operation 10 operation minus 3. Now when it comes to this question, it's a really simple question when you stop and think about it here. And so what we're looking at here for part 1 here, then you see here that since the connection between M and D is M operation D, then it means that M is 2 and N is 10. In this case here, N is 10. All right, so M is 2 and N is 10. All right, so if we can go ahead and plug 2 for M in the formula and 10 for N, then we should get our answer for 2 operation 10. All right, so let's say we have it here on screen. So here, M is 2, N is 10. Plug it into the formula. It's going to be the square root of 3, open bracket. It says 3M, and we just said M is 2, so it's 3 times 2 plus N, which is 10. So, all right, so N is 10. So if we work this out, then you will find here that we end up with the square root of 3 times 2 is 6, and that's plus 10, so that becomes the square root of 16, which is going to be equal to 4. Right, square root of 16, which is 4. Let's put a black box around this here, because we're going to need this answer in a bit. All right, so 2 operation 10, the solution for 2 operation 10 is in fact 4. All right, so let's make a note of that. Now, as we move to question number 2, or part 2 of this question, we're then asked to work out 7 operation 2 operation 10. Now, what you have to note here is that the questions are connected. So you'll notice here that we specifically place 2 operation 10 in a parentheses, a pair of parentheses. So that means that I can then substitute the answer that was calculated for 2 operation 10. So this can be simplified to 7 operation, the answer that we got for 2 operation 10, which is 4. So then we are now asked to work out 7 operation 4. So in this case here now, M is going to be, the new value for M is going to be 7. The new value for M is going to be 7. And the new value for N is going to be 4 in this question. So it becomes the square root of 3 times 7 plus 4. All right, 3 times 7 plus 4. Now, 3 times 7 is in fact going to be 21 plus 4. So that works out to be square root of 25, which we can clearly calculate here that the answer is going to be 5. So the solution, the final solution here for pardon me here, the final solution here for 7 operation 2 operation 10 works out to be 5 here. All right, so that's how you would go about getting the answer to that question. Remember, I told you that you have to make a note of the answer for 2 operation 10 because 2 operation 10 continues to repeat itself. Now if you look here again, that we are also asked to work out 2 operation 10 operation minus 3. So remember that we had already got the answer for 2 operation 10 that worked out to be 4, and now we're going to be operating that, then we're going to be operating that with minus 3. So now our new m value here is 4, and our new n value here is minus 3. All right, so then we're going to plug that into the formula. That is the square root of 3m. So in this case here, 2 operation 10 was m. We replace that with the answer, which is 4, so that becomes 3 times 4, and then we're going to plus that to negative 3. So 3 times 4 is going to give us 12, so that's going to be 12. All right, 12, and then we're going to minus 3 from that. Positive with negative is negative, so that becomes the square root of 9, which works out nicely to be 3. So at the end of this particular question, you can see that the answers came out pretty clear, pretty easy. The questions that I actually gave on previous exams and in class were a little bit more trickier than this one, so it's going to be very interesting to see what the overall statistics on how many students got this question right is going to be. All right, so that takes care of that question then. All right, so let's just move on to the other question here. We're moving quite nicely. We are about 45 minutes into the class or the video here, and we are then asked to work out, well, we are asked to simplify the expression below, and the expression below is 4x raised to the power of negative 4 y to the power of 5 multiplied by 2x raised to the minus 3 y squared, all divided by 6xy. Now this particular question, I structured it this way once again to find out or to test if my students are in fact able to convert knowledge. If you've watched any of my previous algebra videos, algebra classes that I posted here on the channel, this particular question, this will be the first time that my students are actually seeing the question written this way. So let's dive right on into it here to see what you guys actually did here. So I have it written down for you already here. 4x raised to the minus 4y to the 5 multiplied by 2x raised to the minus 3 y squared. As usual, whenever you have composite questions like these, it is important that you actually work out the top part of the problem and then combine the answer with the bottom part of the problem here. So then we have, so we're going to say 4 multiplied by 2, so let's put that into a bracket by itself. 4 multiplied by 2. Okay, let's see here. Okay, let's see, just having a bit of glitch here, guys. Okay, so 4 multiplied by 2 in a bracket, and then we're gonna have all the x's together. So we're gonna have x raised to the minus 4 multiplied, okay, x raised to the minus 4 multiplied by x raised to the minus 3. I don't know why I'm itching it up in the corner here. Let's go down to the bottom here, guys. 4 multiplied by 2. Let's start again here. All right, and then we're gonna have x raised to the minus 4. We're gonna multiply that by x raised to the minus 3 Then we're going to group the y's together. So that's going to be y multiplied by, so y to the 5, pardon me, multiplied by y to the 2. For those of you guys who are wondering what is that full stop for, we also use a full stop or a dot to represent multiplication for those of you who are seeing this for the first time. All right, and then now let's work this part out first. So we're gonna have 4 times 2, that's going to give us 8. All right, and then the rule for multiplying algebraic expressions with the same base is that we add the powers here. So that's going to be minus 4 plus minus 3. That's going to give us x raised to the minus 7. And then we're going to have y 5 plus 2. So we're going to be adding the powers here as well. So we're going to be adding the powers here as well. So 5 plus 2, that's going to give us 7 here. All right, now that's the answer for the top part. So we're going to be dividing it then by the expression at the bottom, which is 6xy. All right, and this is the step-by-step process. Of course, if I was doing this on my own, I could mentally do everything at once. But if you guys want to be able to understand step by step what you guys needed to do, then here we end up with 8 divided by 6. Now 8 divided by 6, this is interesting. I actually did not want to write 6. I wanted to write a different number. I wanted it to come out easily, but I'm happy that it actually came out as 8 divided by 6 because these are not examples that we usually work in class. So let's go to the side here. 8 divided by 6. We could turn it into a decimal if we want to, or we could just simply cancel. So we could say 2 into 8 goes 4 times. And 26 goes 3. So we end up with 4 over 3 as our coefficient. Right? So 8 divided by 6 is 4 divided by 3. Once again, we're going to have x to the 7, well, x to the negative 7 in this case, will be divided by, let's see here. So I'm going to divide, give me a sec, guys. So x to the minus 7 divided by x, okay, because this is just x to the 1 right here. That's just x to the 1, so that's just x to the 1. All right, and then we're going to combine it then with y to the 7. We're going to divide that. We're going to divide that by, once again, y to the 1. Y to the 1. All right, when you do the questions in this order, it makes it easier for you. So you end up then with a final answer of 4 over 3. And now the opposite indices rule that when we're dividing algebraic expressions with the same base, we're going to in fact subtract the powers here. So we end up with minus 7 minus 1. That's going to be x raised to the minus 8. And then this dot means that it's merged together or it's multiplying. So let's just put our y here. All right, it's merged together. And we're dividing once again. So that's 7 minus 1. That's going to give us 6 here. All right, 6. All right, so our final result then works out to be 4 over 3 x raised to the minus 8 y to the 6. And that is your final result. If you guys would like to have access to this particular document that is here on screen, if you'd like me to email you, then you can leave your email in the chat or in the comments, or you can just DM me on any one of my social platforms. I will release the actual PDF document with the solution for you if you are interested. All right, wonderful. Okay, so let's then move on to say here oh, that was worth 3 marks. I feel like that was a good enough marks for that question. We're going to be meeting up once again our third worded questions. We are now at question 3A. All right, so for this question here, a bedroom suite has a mark price of $108,000, which is inclusive of 15% sales tax. we are to calculate the subtotal cost of the suite. All right, it's a very interesting question here. This is a inverse proportion question. All right, and if you notice that I have some non-verbal communications here on the paper, there are some words that I capitalized, there are some words that I put here in bold, and these are me. Well, these are ways that us as instructors, teachers, examiners try to send you clues to solving the question. So we need to pay very close attention to words like marked price, the word inclusive, and of course unfamiliar word there, subtotal. You don't see that word a lot in exam questions, but let's break it down for you, because this is not just a review paper. This is a paper to explain a lot of the things that may have flew over your head while you were in class. So mark price is what we call the tag price. It is the price that you actually walk into a store and see hanging on the little tag. So that's your marked price. That's the price that is advertised. All right, and remember that a price can be advertised when it's exclusive or inclusive of tax. In this particular question, the marked price seen by the customer included the tax. So we are to calculate the subtotal. Now, subtotal is another term used whenever we are asking you to calculate the price before the tax. So let's go to a page. I think I've written this down for you. I think I had. Let's check it here. I think I left a space. Right, I think I left some space. Okay, there we have it. So I've already written down the important notes from the question. The marked price is 108,000. The inclusive tax is 15%. Discount is 10%. The positive 20% installment is 9,005. So we are asked to calculate the subtotal. Subtotal is the price before tax. So what we know for sure is that the original cost, let's just take a different ink. Hold on, give me a sec here, guys. So what we know is that the original price of anything that you're buying, the original price of anything is always equal to 100%. That's something that is a given. The original price of anything is 100%. Now, if you're buying an item that is inclusive of tax, then the price you paid is actually, the tax is added to it already. So the item that is advertised here for 108,000 is actually being sold at 115%. So at 115%, this particular suite is values at $108,000. So we're going to write down on paper that 115% is equal to 108,000. Therefore, finding the single proportion, which is 1%, we can say 1% is equal to 108,000 divided by 115. So that's 108,000. Okay, 108,000 divided by 115. That's going to give you $939.13. Okay, so that's $939.13, and that is 1%. Now, subtotal, and funny enough, this is actually on the receipt of everything that you guys have purchased. If you guys take up your KFC paper or your supermarket paper and you look at the bottom of your receipt, you will see something says on the receipt that says subtotal. Let me know in the comments, guys, if you've not really been the type of person that pays attention to these details. Yes, your subtotal is the price of the item before the general consumption tax is added. So that's going to be 100%. So that's 100 multiplied by 939.13. All right, so if we multiply that, okay, give me a sec here, guys. So if we multiply this by 100, you will find that the actual price of the suite before tax was added, I'm going to leave it as a rounded figure. So I'm going to have 93,913. Just for easy calculation's sake, I'm going to just leave it as without the decimal. This is actually 0.04 cents, but we're going to leave off the 4 cents and keep it at 93,990. Now, a lot of the times why you students will find that this particular question is challenging, it is not the type of mathematics problem that you would do on your everyday basis, because usually whenever you go to the supermarket or you purchase something, you spend your money and you leave it at that. So it's not a case where it's a requirement for us to calculate subtotal. It is what it is. We know that everything that we buy, there's always going to be tax added to it. But this is the actual mathematical calculation behind what is on your receipt there. Okay, so then let's get down to this part here. And let's see if we can pull up that fresh page. Okay, here we go. So there we have it. So at the top here, continuing, a customer has two options to acquire the suite. Now, if the customer buys the suite at the marked price, there you can see I've highlighted the word marked price. If you walk into the store and you want to purchase this item for the advertised price, the company is going to give you a 10% discount. However, though, if you go against buying it cash, it can also be acquired by you making a 20% deposit, and for the next 1 year you're going to be required to make payments, monthly payments that is, of 9,500. Our task, our first question here is to determine the amount that is saved by paying the mark price. So we need to first calculate what is the amount that you would actually pay if you wanted to purchase the item at the advertised or the marked price. So that means then we need a discount calculation here. So therefore then, let's pull up our discount sheet here. All right, so let's see, 10% divided by 100, and we're going to multiply that by the advertised price, which is $108,000. So if you were to walk into the store, then 10 divided by 100 multiplied by 108,000, you will find that you get a discount of $10,800 deducted from the advertised price. Therefore, cash would be 108,000 minus that 10,800. So the customer would end up paying $97,200. Now, the trick in this question here, is understanding that the 97,200 is the amount that you would actually pay for the suite if you decide to buy it cash. However, though, because you decided to not purchase the item cash, then you're going to have to make a 20% down payment on the item. So let's go ahead and calculate the higher purchase value then. 20% over 100 multiplied by 108,000. Now here's a fun fact. Here's where critical thinking comes in. Okay, let's double check. Hold on, give me a sec, guys. Okay, So here's where critical thinking comes in. We already know that 10% is 10,800. So we could actually just multiply that by 2 to get the down payment. That's if you're thinking like that. Now, you could just go ahead then and just do the calculation, and you'll see that 20 divided by 100 multiplied by 108,000. If you were to double 10,800, you will find that it's 21,600. So you could say 21,600 here. So that's going to be the down payment, right? Now, for the next 1 year, you're going to be asked to make payments of 9,500 for the next 1 year. So 12 months make a year. So that's going to be 12 multiplied by 9,500. 12 multiplied by 9,500. And that's going to be equal to 114,000. Also, it's exactly 114,000. So that is the amount that you would have paid in addition to that $21,600 that was paid to acquire the item. So therefore, finally then, you will find that the total paid taking the hire purchase deal is 114,000, and that's the amount paid over the period of 1 year. Plus, remember that you would have added your 21,600 down payment. So that's plus 21,600. And so initially the item would have cost you 108,000 cash. But then because you took the hire purchase deal, it ended up costing you $135,600. So then it goes back to the question, how much is saved by paying cash? If you had bought it at 108,000, you'd have ended up paying 97,000. Let's see, that's what we had. You'd have ended up paying 97,000. Hold on, guys. I think it's 97,200. Is that what we had? Yes. So had you bought it cash, you would have ended up paying 97,200. But because you took it out on a hire purchase deal, you end up paying 135,600. So therefore, how much is saved by paying cash? You therefore subtract both of those answers then. So it would be 100 and it would be, let me see here. Okay. So it would end up being, let's zoom it up here. So it end up being 137,600 minus the 97,200. That's where the critical thinking comes in. So that's 137,600 minus 97,200. So how much is saved by paying cash? Evidently, it's going to be 40,400. 40,400. All right. So that is why you will find that a hire purchase deal is not the most recommended deal for you to take. All right, but there are some persons, like I said, with hire purchase, my personal opinion on that selling strategy is do it if you have to, right? Do it if you have to. Okay, if you can purchase the item cash, then I would recommend that you do that, because hire purchase, you're often going to be paid, or you're often going to be paying way more than what you would naturally imagine over the duration or over the period. All right, but that is how you would go ahead and you'd calculate that particular question then. All right, so nice so far. Let's have a look then. It says then that we should calculate the interest that was charged, and you are to express the answer as a percentage of the outstanding balance. So it's 3 months, a tricky question. All right, just tricky question. We're gonna have to put the working out right here, guys. Okay, so we're to express the interest. So the interest is, funny enough, it is the 40,000 that we just calculated, because the difference between cash and the higher purchase price is the interest that was charged. Now, here's the trick with this particular question. The interest is going to be between the mark price, so it's 137,600 minus the advertised price. That's the interest. Well, no, actually it is going to be correct. So it's going to be 40,400. There's no need to check it again. So that's 40,400. That's going to be your interest. So we need to express this 40,400 as a percentage of the outstanding balance. Now the outstanding balance is actually going to be the marked price minus the deposit. Now let's have a look at what is meant by outstanding balance. Please bear in mind that whenever you see an item that you wish to purchase, once you've made a payment down on the item, then the amount that is owed when you walk out of the store with that item is called your outstanding balance. So in this case, it's going to be 108,000 minus the deposit, which we had calculated earlier to be 21,600. So that's going to be, let's see here, 108,000 minus 21,600. The balance that is owed, or the balance that was owed, was 86,400. So we now need to express, say here, the interest, which is 40,400, as a percentage of 86,400. So that's 40,400 divided by 86,400, and we're going to times that by 100%, and you will find here that the interest as a percentage of the outstanding balance is, well, it's a little less than 47%, but as a rounded number, this is going to be 47% there. All right, so it's actually 46.75 rounded off to about 47%. So it was 47% interest compared to the outstanding balance. You're almost paying 1.5 times more had you just bought the item cash. All right, so that takes care of question 3A. Let's move on then to question 3B. The diagram below, not drawn to scale, I'm going to pull that up on the screen a little bit. The diagram not drawn to scale shows a rectangular container prism with a length of 35 and a square cross-sectional area of 169 square centimeters. Our task is to calculate the volume of the prism, 1 mark, pretty easy, and we are also determine the length of the cross-sectional edge. Let's pull that diagram up on screen here. There you have it, 169 square centimeters. That is the area of that shaded section, as you're seeing here on screen. That is the area of that square, and then the length of the rectangular prism is 35. All right, and we are asked to calculate the volume. Now, on the paper, a bunch of formulas were placed at the back of this exam paper, and one of those formulas was actually the formula for volume. Volume is equal to A multiplied by H. Volume is equal to the cross-sectional area. That's what A represents. A represents the cross-sectional area times height. Let's go again, guys. Volume is equal to A multiplied by H, and A is the area of the cross section. So in this case here, volume is equal to area of the cross-sectional area, which is what was stated earlier, is actually 169. Now, the trick with this question here is that oftentimes students think that height is always vertical. So when you're looking for the height, they may think that the height is here, or it might be here. And if they don't see a value there, they make the assumption that there is no height. Now, as I had demonstrated to a lot of my students in my class, that height and length is interchangeable depending on the orientation of the prism. Now, in this case, our prism is lying down flat on the side. So the height, had this particular prism been standing on that red shaded area, like upright, like a cornflakes box, then it would have been the height. But in this case, because it's lying down flat on the side, then the height becomes the length. So in this case here, it's 169 multiplied by 35. And so if we work that out, we will end up here with a volume of 5,915 cubic centimeters. Now, I didn't get a chance to dive too deep into the topic of volume, so I had just touched just a base. I had just touched a little bit on that question, so it wasn't a lot for this particular question here. So the volume of this rectangular container prism is 5,915 square centimeters. Now, we were in fact asked to also determine the length of the cross-sectional edge. So we need to determine what this length or this length or this length or this length is. We need to determine what's the height, what's the length, what's the measurement, what's the dimension of that cross-sectional edge. Now, please bear in mind that they did say in the question that the cross-sectional edge is a square. So what do we know about a square? We can use the golden rule here, and we can see that area of a square is length squared. And in this case, we are in fact aware that the length of that cross-sectional edge is 169. So that means 169 is equal to L squared. Now, we know that the opposite of squaring a variable or squaring a constant is to square root the constant. So therefore then, if we find the square root of 169, you will find that you get the measurement of the cross-sectional edge, and that then will work out to be equal to 13 centimeter. All right, so that means this edge here is 13 centimeter. Let's just get it here, 13 centimeter. All right, so that is the length of that edge there. All right, so we didn't really go too deep into it, just wanted to just touch base a little bit on volume, because that is a topic that we're going to be diving into a bit further coming into the second term of this Csec exam preparation here. Now we're going to be looking at the first version of substitution. All right, earlier in the video we did substitution using the binary approach. We're going to be using the direct approach to this question then. So what we have now is given that A is equal to 2 and B is equal to -3 and C is equal to 4, we are then asked to find the value of the following: AB minus BC, B open bracket A minus C all squared, and B over A minus A over C. So we're going to be doing that right here and now. So since A is equal to 2, all right, so let's say that A is equal to 2, so that's going to be 2 multiplied by B is equal to -3, so that's -3. Remember, AB means A times B. We're going to minus B now, which is -3. So we're going to put that in a bracket as well. So that's minus, open bracket, B is a -3, multiplied by C is 4. So we work out that to be 2 times -3 is -6. Negative by negative is positive. 3 times 4 is 12. And on our calculator or mentally, we should get an answer here of 6. Negative 6 plus 12. Negative 6 is an amount that is owed. 12 is an amount that is that you have. Pay the amount that is owed, and you will now find that your answer is 6. Moving to the next question, b open bracket a minus c squared. B is minus 3, so we're going to put that minus 3 outside. Open our bracket. A is 2 minus c is 4, and we're going to square. All right. Now, funny enough, this particular question is a very basic, fundamental question that requires the skills of PEMDAS. So what we have here is we have parentheses, we have exponent, and we also know that whatever is outside of the parentheses should be used to multiply what is on the inside. You guys can go ahead and multiply or type everything on the calculator at once, and you will find that you end up with an answer of negative 12. But easier way for me, and I think a more efficient way, is to learn how to work these problems out. So that's going to be negative 3. All right, we're going to put this, we're going to turn this bracket into a multiplication, and then we're going to be working out 2 minus 4 squared. Now, 2 minus 4 is actually minus 2. Put it back into a bracket, and then we're going to square it. Now, many students, because they use the calculator so very often, if you're going to be using the calculator to find the square of negative 2, do not forget to put your brackets. Otherwise, you will have to remember that once you square a negative number, you're going to get a positive result. So that's going to be positive 4. And so our answer here works out to be negative 12. All right, that's the solution to that particular question then. And then now finally we have this one here, b divided by a. So that's b. B in this case we said earlier is negative 3 divided by a, which we said is 2. And we're going to subtract that from a, which we said is 2 once again, divided by c, which is 4. All right. Now, we can go ahead and, since it's a fraction, so this is another way for me that I was testing my students to see if they saw that this is a fraction question. Okay, so fraction here is going to be, the LCM part of me is going to be 4. 2 into 4 goes 2 times, put the 2 at the top here. 4 into 4 goes 1 time, put the 1 at the top here. Negative 3 times 2, that's going to be equal to negative 6. 4 into 4 goes 1 time, 1 times 2 is 2, so we end up with negative 8 over 4. And then that works out nicely to be negative 2. Alright, so negative 8 divided by 4 gives us negative 2. So all in all, guys, you can see that even though maybe you initially thought that the paper was a tricky one, it is actually not a tricky question. It actually seems to be a very, very easy question. And I know that some of you guys may be wondering, what is it that I was thinking while I was doing this exam? Usually that's what exam does to students, guys. Exam tends to have students make some really underlying errors that are, I would say, that is pretty much unforgivable. All right, but the important thing here is that you're seeing the solution and you're now getting a better approach towards the question then. Okay, so that takes care of question number 3A and 3B, and we are now approaching the final question in section 1. Now I've decided that I'm going to be uploading this particular video here in 2 parts. So section 1, all right, which will maybe bring us to about an hour and 45 minutes, maybe about 2 hours, I don't know, let's see, right? All right, and then in section 2, all right, I'm going to be posting section 2 separately in another video then. Okay, let's continue. Question 4A. The perimeter of a rectangle, pardon me, that's what it should have been. The perimeter of a rectangle is the same as the perimeter of a circle, which is equal to 16 centimeters. if the length of the rectangle is 2 meters more than its width, we are to use that interesting information there to calculate the area of the rectangle, and hence we are to determine the area of the circle. Now, these are the type of questions that my students find very, very, very difficult. And this is also the type of questions that Csec sends a lot on exam papers, right? If you were to peruse through old past paper questions, you will find that these questions that are worded with no diagrams usually tends to give students a very, very difficult time because of the interpretation and comprehension required to start. Now, I do often tell my students that try to use a picture to represent the wording. So I went right ahead here for you, and I went ahead and drew a diagram here for you guys. So this is the diagram that represents the information here, and let us just do some, let's transfer the knowledge here. We did initially, when we read, it stated that the perimeter, which is the blue broken lines going around my rectangle here, the distance around that is 16 centimeters. And also for my circle that is on my right here with the red broken lines going around, that also measures 16 based on the question. Now, we need to create a connection between the rectangle and the circle, and the connection is that the perimeters are the same. So if we can go ahead and find the perimeter, or find the exact perimeter, or find something related to the rectangle and the circle, then we should be okay. So let's go ahead then and write down the perimeter of a rectangle. Perimeter of a rectangle is actually equal to 2 times the length plus 2 times the width. Let's make a note of that. Now, there was a critical information that was stated in the question. It did say that the length of the rectangle is 2 meters more than its width. 2 meters more than its width. What does that mean? Now, we don't know anything about the length or the width. The only thing that we know is that the length is 2 meters more than the width, and the width is always usually to the side here. Now, since we don't know what the width is, let's go ahead and place the width and call the width x. So the width is x. Therefore, if the length is 2 meters more than the width, that means the width is going to be x plus 2. And that is where you would have found yourself unable to start this question, because usually when you get a question like this, you normally are told that the length or the width is a particular value, but the width in this case is unknown. So usually when we get questions like these, we just apply, or we just assign a letter to the unknown quantity, and in this case the width is x, therefore the length is going to be 2 meters more than the width. So therefore then, here we end up with the length being 2x plus 2 and the width being x. So the perimeter, which we are told is 16, so let's put the 16 right underneath the variable p, is going to be equal to 2 times the length, which we now know is x plus 2, and 2 times the width, which is 2 times x, because the width is x. Now, here is where your algebra is being tested. All right, so now we end up with 2 times x and 2 times 2. So that's going to be 16 is equal to 2 times x, which is 2x. And 2 times 2 is 4. And we're going to be adding back that 2x here. All right, remember that this 2x is because one side is x and the other side is x. So that's going to be 2 times x there. Okay, so that's 2x here. All right, now if we can, no, I did not teach my students equations as a topic in algebra, but we've been solving equations by using what is called the golden rule. So we use the opposite operation to find the variable. Now in this case, if we need to find the exact measurement of the length and the width of the rectangle, then it means that I'm going to have to solve this equation. So that's 16 is going to be equal to 2x plus 2x, 2x plus 2x, they're like terms, that's going to be equal to 4x, and that's 4x plus 4. All right, now the 4 is connected to the 4x by a plus sign. So the opposite is going to be subtract. So that's 16 take away 4. That's going to give us 4x. And you will find here that 16 take away 4 is 12. 12 is equal to 4x. Now the 4 and the x are connected by multiplication. So the opposite of multiply is to divide. So therefore x then in this case is equal to 12 divided by 4, which in this case x works out to be 3 meters or 3 centimeters, whatever the case is. All right, 3 centimeters. All right, so now that we know that x is 3, if we go back to our diagram, then it obviously means that this is going to be 3 plus 2. I think maybe something is wrong here. Hold on. 12 divided by 4 is 4 3 is 12. Okay, so that's going to be 3 here, and that's going to be x is 3 here. Now something seems to be off, because this length is now 5 and this length is 3, and it's now showing that 5 times 3 is 15 and not 16. So let me just check something here, guys. Hold on. Okay, so it wasn't a mistake, guys. I actually was thinking that I was finding the error. So yes, this is 5, this part is 5 here as well, so that's going to be 10, and then these two sides are 3 and 3, so that's 6, so that's 10 plus 6 is 16. So that was my error there. All right, so there we have it. So the length of the rectangle is 5 and the width is actually 3. Okay, so if we need to find the area of the rectangle, then we can just say 5 times 3 is 15. That's if we need. All right, now since we know that they're both the same, we can therefore also make a connection between the circle as well. So the circle, or the circumference of a circle, is 2 times pi times r. So in this case, c is equal to 2 times 3.142 times the radius is what we don't know. So the radius is what we don't know. We need to find the radius. And we know that the circumference of the rectangle is the same thing as the circumference of the circle. So 16 is equal to 6.28. So that's going to be 3 multiplied by 3.142 multiplied by 2. So that's 6.284 times r. And since r is connected to the 6.284 by multiplication, then the opposite of multiply is to divide. So that's 16 divided by 6.284, and that's going to give us the value of the radius. So let's grab our calculator here. So 16 divided by 6.284, that's going to give us 2. So that's going to give us 2.55. Let's do 2.6. All right, so let's just do 2.6, round it off. All right, now if we need to find the diameter, we can find that. We're not asked to do so. But if we're asked to find diameter, then we can actually go ahead and just multiply that result of 2.6 by 2. All right, so we've found a lot of the things that we need here. Let's go back to the question then to really verify all that they've asked us for here. First thing is that we're asked to calculate the area of the rectangle. So we did say earlier that the length of the rectangle calculated to be 5. So it's going to be 5, and the width worked out to be 3 because the width was x. So the area of the rectangle is in fact going to be 15 centimeter squared. All right, so we had to go through all that calculation just to verify that the area is actually 15. And they say determine the area of the circle. Then the area of the circle, we know well, the area of the circle, we know the formula is pi r squared. So let's see here. So we know that the area of the circle, not this circle, guys, that's a different question. So the area of the circle at the top is actually equal to pi r squared. So area is equal to pi, which is 3.14 multiplied by 2.6 squared. Alright, so that's 3.142 multiplied by 2.6, and we're going to square that, and we end up with an area of the circle above. We end up with an area that is equal to 21.23. So 21.23 squared centimeters. Alright, so that is our answer here. 21.23 squared centimeters. Okay, so tough question, easy question. Leave your votes in the comments. Were you guys able to get anywhere close to this calculation? Most of the time you will find that this is exactly what Csec wants you all to do. These are the tricky questions that they come with. Okay, let's then move on to the other part of this question. Bringing question 4 to the end. It says now part B, if the area of a circle is 40 square centimeters, we're to calculate the length of the diameter. So that now is the question for the second circle here. So this is the circle that we have down here. The area of this circle is 40 square centimeters, and we're asked to calculate the length of the diameter. So once again, this question is tied with the formula A is equal to pi times r squared. And in this case, we're told that A is 40, so we're going to put 40 underneath A here. Pi, we know, is the known constant 3.14, or for some of you guys, well, for me, really, I like to use 3.142. And we're going to multiply that by, once again, it's a different circle, so be very mindful not to use the radius that we had calculated earlier to be 2.6. It's a different question. So that's going to be r squared. Alright, now if we go ahead and isolate the r squared by dividing the 40 by 3.142, you will find here that r squared is actually equal to 12.73. Alright, so if we divide both sides by 3.142, we get 12.73. Now the opposite of squaring, as we've seen already, is the square root. So r is equal to the square root of 12.73. So that's going to be 12.73. So the radius is actually equal to 3.6 rounded off, so 3.6 centimeter. Now since the radius is 3.6, it's very easy to find the diameter, because the diameter is going to be equal to 2 times the radius. So that's 2.3.6, and you will find that your answer is 7.2. Alright, it's a bit chopped up, guys, but I hope you guys are following. Alright, so it is 7.2. So the diameter is equal to 7.2 centimeter. Alright, so that takes care of that question then. Okay, so hopefully you guys are in fact enjoying the video, enjoying the review. Hopefully you're not enjoying the review because you're getting all the questions right, but you're actually enjoying the review because you're now having a much better understanding of how to approach these worded type questions here. And you're gonna be seeing a lot more advanced versions of this. So gear up, guys. This is only just the beginning here. Alright, and just to bring section 1 of this paper to the end and to bring us to the end of this particular video. We're going to be looking at a manager of an insurance firm earns a monthly salary of $55,000. Now, his basic week is 25 hours. I did in fact remember that I made this question quite tricky. So his basic week is 25 hours, and in addition, he earns a commission of 6% on all insurance sales made monthly. During a particular month, there again, you see that non-verbal communication, it is capitalized and bolded. During a particular month, his gross earnings amounted to $68,825. You have to calculate his basic wage. Now, let's break this question down here. All right, let's see. Let us see here. So I did went ahead to break down some stuff here. The monthly salary is $55,000, and his basic week, that is how much hours he works weekly, is 25 hours. The commission he receives is 6%, and the gross income for that particular month is $68,825. Now we are asked to calculate the basic wage. Remember, we are told that he gets a monthly salary of $55,000. So therefore, since monthly salary, let's just go ahead. Since we know that monthly salary is equal to basic wage, in this case it is times 4, because there's 4 weeks in a month, and a wage is how much you get per week. Then your monthly salary, which in this case is $55,000, is going to be equal to, we don't know what the basic wage is, but we're going to multiply it by 4. So if you go ahead and just divide 55,000 by 4, it will give us the approximate answer that his basic week, or basic wage, pardon me, is $13,750. All right, that's the basic wage. So all right, so for some of you guys may have done it a much simpler approach. Maybe you would have just gone right ahead and just saw that you have to divide 55,000 by 4. That's also perfectly fine as well. All right, let's continue. It says that the total insurance sales he made in that particular month. We want to know his total sales for that particular month. Now, remember, it stated earlier that in that particular month, his gross earnings was actually $68,825. But that's completely different from what he usually gets every month. So therefore, in that $68,825 contains some payments, all right, and that is his commission. So let's go ahead and process some calculation here. This next question is related to commission. So we know right away that the commission formula is X% over 100 multiplied by total sales. Now in this case, his commission is going to be his gross income for that particular month. So his gross income for that particular month minus his monthly salary. Because we have to take away what he usually gets every month from what he got that particular month. That will tell us how much commission he got. So from $68,825, we're going to subtract his $55,000 usual payment. And so mathematically then, $68,825 minus $55,000, he seems to have gotten some payments. Well, he seems to have gotten $13,825 worth of commission payments. All right, and so if that is his commission, then we can replace this value in the commission formula, $13,825, and that's going to be equal to, commission formula states that commission received, or any amount of commission that you receive, is dependent upon the interest of the commission which is X%, and in this case we're told that the commission is 6%, so that's going to be 6 divided by 100, and we're going to multiply that by total sales because we don't know what the sales were. So 6 divided by 100, that's going to be 13,825, and that's going to be equal to 0.06 times total sales. And so total sales and 0.06 is connected by multiplication. So that's 13,825. The opposite of multiply is to divide by 0.06. And you will find that, wow, okay then, he's made 230,000. So he has made 230,000. So he has made $230,416 worth of sales, commission sales. That's the amount that his sales came up to for that month, and 67 cents. All right, so he has made a total of $230,416.67 worth of sales. All right, it's a very, mathematically speaking, I think it's a really easy question, but it's the interpretation that I find that not only my students, but some of you students who I'm not teaching, you guys may also would have found this question a bit challenging as it relates to whether or not Csec would give you this kind of question. I am not 100% sure. Usually whenever Csec gives you questions that are worded, it's usually a little bit more simplified, a little bit different, a little bit easier. But if you can develop the ability to really understand and analyze and break down and work out questions of this magnitude, then I believe that whatever CXC sends to you in the future won't give you much of a challenge there. All right, so the total insurance sales made for that month is $230,416.67. All right, now we are asked to calculate his hourly rate. Now bear in mind that we know that he actually gets this. I think we checked it earlier. We are told that, well, we were asked to calculate in part 1 what is his basic wage, and his basic wage is $13,750. So since we know that he gets 13,000, let's write down a formula for that then. We know that basic wage, pardon me guys, so we know that basic wage is equal to basic rate times basic week we know that the basic wage is actually 13,750. That's what we calculated in part 1. And we know that the basic rate is what we're looking for, but the basic week, we stated it here, was 25 hours. So therefore, if we divide 13,750 by the amount of hours he has to work to get that, you will find that the hourly rate here is actually equal to $550. So the basic rate is actually equal to $550. So that's how much he's being paid hourly. All right, now at first glance I thought that the question was really difficult. Well, not really difficult, but I thought that the question may have had a bit more challenge, but it was really, once again, testing the critical thinking of the students here. All right, and that takes care of that part. And for the final part in this video here, if overtime is worked, so we are being told that if overtime is worked, if it's worked, he will be paid at time and a quarter rate. Now during his weekly wage for 1 week where 13 overtime hours was done, and hence we are asked to determine his weekly wage for 1 week where 13 hours overtime was done. All right, so already we know that normally weekly he gets 13,750. So let's put that here. So 13,750 plus we know that overtime is going to be 13 hours multiplied by how much he's paid per hour. We just calculated that he's paid $550 per hour. So if we can calculate that, 13 hours overtime multiplied by how much he's paid per hour, that gives us $7,150. That's how much he gets for that 13 hours overtime. So that now will be added to that 13,750 for that week. So for 1 week, he will end up getting a total of $20,900 for one particular week. Obviously, if he works, oh, pardon me, I think that we need to multiply this by 1.25. So I did make an error here, guys. So let's just erase this here. Because remember that overtime has to be paid at a slightly different rate. So the rate at which overtime is being paid here is 1.25. So let's do our calculation again. That's going to be 13 hours overtime multiplied by 550 per normal hours times 1.25, which is the overtime rate. So he ends up getting a total here of $8,937.50. So that now is going to be added. So my apologies, guys, for earlier. Forgot that 1.25. So that's going to be $8,937.50. So if we add that to 13,750, his payment for that particular week is going to be $22,687.50. All right, so that's what he would have gotten for that one particular week where he works 13 hours overtime. It did also say that we should calculate calculate his income for that month if he works the same overtime each week. So we can go ahead then and just multiply this by 4 right away, because he's going to be doing 13 hours overtime every single week. So we know that for 1 week he gets $22,687.50, and if he does that every week as instructed in this question, 22,687.50 times 4, his monthly income for that month is going to be $90,750. All right, and that has snoop past his 55,000 that he would have gotten on a regular month. All right, so this brings us to the end of this part of the review paper. This is section 1. If you have watched this part of the video so far, take a break, have a drink, come back another day and to watch part 2, where we take on section 2. We're dealing with topics such as coordinate geometry, and we're also looking at topics such as measurement. It's going to be an interesting section on the paper as well. All right, so let me know in the comments, guys, how much marks this section was worth. 60 points. How much out of the 60 did you get? Well, I'm not going to remember all you guys' scores, because at the time of making this video I have no idea what the exam results are. All right, but if you guys have enjoyed this video, thank you so much for joining. Thank you so much for being a part of this session. I will see you in the next video. Until next time, this is Akin Apex Elenio, your math instructor, and I'll see you in the next tutorial. Bye bye, take care.